Welcome. You are listening to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast, where you'll hear fun, relaxed, and inspirational interviews with people who are really living the dream. I'm Dawn Fleming, an attorney turned alchemist, and your host for the show, coming to you from the tropical island paradise of Isla Mujeres, Mexico. Listen to conversations with courageous souls who've stepped out of their comfort zone and designed a new way of life. They'll share their experiences, wisdom, and offer practical steps you can take to redesign your life overseas. Listen and you'll believe. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. I am finally here with Tiffany Lanier, and I am super excited about this interview because I've been wanting to interview you for so long, and you're always so darn busy, and I know you still are, but thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
We have another Minnesota girl here, backgrounds where we're from, but you obviously have a different path. Maybe that's a good place to start if you want to just kind of talk about how you made your way down here.
Yeah, well, and I guess to go back even a little bit farther, I was born in Texas and brought up in southeastern Minnesota until I was around 8. When my dad moved to New York, he was an IBMer, lifetime IBMer. So we moved to New York, and my mom stayed in Minnesota. So I was back and forth about every 2 to 3 years.
Oh, wow.
So I wasn't necessarily brought up in a very, I was born and raised in the same place. I moved around a lot. I learned how to make friends very quickly, socially, you had to.
Sure.
And I also learned how to pack real quick and unpack and then pack again and unpack. So, that's where I was. I was 28 working at the Mayo Clinic and IT. I went to college for computer programming and then for business and landed a job at Mayo Clinic. And it was awesome because I got my own office. I worked in one of the most, to me, it was like such a great office building with so many smart people in it. I worked in contracts management. I did project management for them. And I really landed myself in a great place. I got good money. I bought my house. I bought a brand new car. I had my son. So when I had my son, I was 20, essentially a single mom, and went to school because of him. Wanted a better life because of him. So here we were, 8 years old. We were in small town Minnesota, working at the Mayo Clinic, having everything that I wanted, except I wasn't happy.
Wow.
I did everything I was supposed to, other than find the husband, which never really was, dating is fine, but commitment to somebody is rough. Maybe because I moved around so much, I don't know. And I just wasn't happy, but I didn't know what I was missing. So sometimes it would be like, oh, you're missing a man, so go find a husband and stuff. Oh, okay, so start dating, online dating, and that was disastrous.
Amen.
Yeah. And I was part of a group of 3 friends that went to high school together. And even though I had moved back to New Jersey in my senior year of high school, and then came back to Minnesota. It was a very long story, but Dana and Chris were my high school friends from the day that I moved to that town in 9th grade, and Dana was getting married. And at that time, because I had an office and there was a printer and lots of office equipment that I could use, sorry, Mayo Clinic, I actually did do that on my work hours.
That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, almost 20 years ago. And so I was helping my friends plan their weddings. And so when Dana wanted to get married somewhere that wasn't at home, she didn't want a church wedding. She didn't want a barn wedding. She wanted a destination wedding. And none of us really knew anything about that. Meanwhile, our other friend, Chris, had come to Cancun on her graduation trip with her parents. And they came to Isla Mujeres on a day trip. And Chris said, hey, why don't you get married on this little island in Cancun I went to on my graduation trip, and it's fantastic. It's wonderful. You'll love it. So we were looking at pictures, and that day that she came, it was a gloomy day. It was raining that day. And I'm like, man, this isn't, let's go to Fiji. What are you talking, this Mexican island? There's got to be like donkeys and dirty and, I didn't know. So I tried to talk her into going to Fiji. It was too expensive.
I bet.
And luckily, and it's such a stupid story, but the manager of our local grocery store's wife was a travel agent, and she talked us into going to Isla Mujeres and staying at Perla del Caribe. And it was only $1,000 per person for round trip tickets and 7 nights or six nights, 7 days at Perla del Caribe. And at the time, Perla del Caribe was very run down, but the pictures looked amazing.
Right. Seen that before.
Yeah. So 19 of us came down to get her married. And essentially, I planned her wedding. I'd never been to Mexico. I had not taken any Spanish classes other than high school. And there was a message board at the time that Julie had ran. And I was a very, very active person on that message board. And somehow these folks did all the legwork for me. They would come down to Isla Mujeres, and some of them would go and find me a florist or the bakery or all of these other services that I needed to plan this wedding, but I couldn't be here to do it. So They did it for me. And it was amazing because the amount of information they got and the phone numbers, because nobody had websites back then.
I was going to say that was kind of really pre-internet. I mean, It was around, but not like now. Yeah.
Oh no. I mean, even getting a hold of them on the phone and then trying to communicate, it was so, oh my God. Thank God for crowdsourcing before crowdsourcing was a thing, really. Like they planned the wedding. It was amazing. We came down here. And I'd never been to Mexico before. And the minute we hit land, like the dock, I knew that this island was something. There was some sort of a magnetic pull. I was here with 18 other people, including my best friend and her fiance and all of her family and a bunch of friends. And I don't know, I felt so comfortable and so at home on this island, and I had never been here. But there was something I just couldn't put my finger on, but it was something that I was like, oh, I love it here.
Not the first time I've heard that. Yeah. For sure. Right.
Yeah, I guess in tune with the vibe of the island, I guess, or something. But yeah, it was fantastic. And while I was here for her wedding, planning her wedding, a weird side thing is that the bride's oldest brother was my first boyfriend, my first love, right? And he was here with his girlfriend, who wasn't me, right?
Right.
So it was super uncomfortable to be
imagine.
here.
Yeah.
In this vacation, getting his sister married, my best friend, I'm the maid of honor, and totally uncomfortable. So I didn't hang out with them. Honestly, I didn't hang out with them during that whole time. I went out and met some friends that I met on that message board at the bar. The minute we got to town, I put my stuff down in the hotel room and went to Playa Sol and met up with some people that I met online on the message board. And I hung out with them the entire time because it was so uncomfortable to hang out with my ex-boyfriend and his girlfriend, now wife,
Sure.
It was one of those things where if that didn't happen, I would not have probably gone and hung out with these other people as much, right?
Right.
But when I went and hung out with these other people, I found out that number one, you can be American and live outside of your own country. I had no idea.
Right.
That blew my mind. I met people that own restaurants, cafes, the bookstore. They were American and they were young. They were my age and they lived here. What? You can do that? I mean,
well,
it just
it's
blew my
funny
mind.
to hear you say that, because I think Tiffany still today, people don't realize that. I mean, even 20 years later, it's astounding. I'm sure you hear it too. Like, what, you own property? Oh, you can own property here? And, we get these crazy, crazy questions. Yeah. Yeah.
It blows your mind, and it's amazing to me. So that was kind of like a mind bender all by itself, right? So on that vacation, I met these people. They were great. I found out you could live outside of your own country. Cool. You can live on this island. That's weird. So we got her married at Playa Sol, and it was beautiful. It worked out great. We all went home. And a year later, I came back down to the island to meet up with these people that I had hung out with that whole week. Right. So they invited me to come back down. That was the first time I ever took a trip by myself. So that was the first time I got on I had gotten on a plane before by myself because I was going back and forth to my parents from Minnesota to New York, but not on a vacation by myself,
Right.
So that was kind of a fun thing. And while I was here, during that particular trip was when I decided to move here. That's when I was able to talk more to people that own their businesses here and kind of pick their brain a little bit and see what's possible. And it was definitely in the middle of the night. It was probably 3:00 in the morning after too many margaritas and with my friends and everything else. It was a full moon and I was walking down the beach, and it plopped into my head. You have to move here. It was such a, you have to move here. There was no question, should I move here? What's the decision? What's my choice? That was not it. It was, you're moving here.
Wow.
And that's it. That's it. So when I went home, I wrote my letter of resignation and gave them 6 months and said, I'm leaving. I'm quitting. And they thought I was crazy. Well, first I said, can I take 4 months off? Can I take 4 months off and you can hire a temp service to do my job? I'll train them in and then I'll come back and everything. They're like, are you crazy? No, you can't do that. No. Then I quit. And I did. So October 15th, right after 9/11 happened, I packed up my 8-year-old son and our dog, Lucky, and we moved here. And the plan was to come here for 4 months. That was the plan, not to move here forever. It was just a 4-month plan. I rented my house at the time. I owned my house. I rented the upstairs for some of my brother's friends rented it in order to pay the rent or the mortgage. And that was that. I came here for 4 months. I found the house that I'm currently living in to rent. I loved it. I kept the house year round. But I had quit my job. I had no money. When I left the Mayo Clinic, they gave me a check for $5,000. Like, here, go invest this, whatever. But I spent it, of course, 'cause that's what I lived on. And I started a wedding planning business because I just did my best friend's wedding. And so I already knew the bakery. I already knew, the florals and all these things that had to go along with it, and getting legally married down here as well. So that's what it was. The wedding business started that way for 4 months. I wasn't even sure. I think that first year I did maybe 2 weddings. And I don't think I made any money off of it because every wedding that I did, I screwed up something really major.
Oh no.
And my philosophy is I charge what I believe is right, whatever. And then on the day of course, there's all these things that you don't think of because I had only done 1 wedding down here before.
And everyone else had helped you put it all together, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I paid money out of my pocket for those weddings for just mistakes that I had made along the way. I thought that they had chairs. They don't have chairs. I have to rent chairs. I have to pay this guy to move the chairs. And, there's no lights. Oh, I have to find lights. Where in the hell are the lights? It was, it's crazy. It's crazy those first even 10 weddings. I was so dumb. I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Well, it sounds like you're kind of fearless too. I mean, you just didn't, didn't go, what if, you just did it, huh?
Yeah. Well, you have to. People hired you to do a job. You have to do the job and do it correctly. Like there is part of it. I do have a perfectionist mindset. So I needed it to be exactly what I envisioned, exactly what they paid for me to do. And if it's not exactly, like I felt like such a failure for like a month because one of my cakes, they wanted a tres leche. The bakery said, I can't do a 3-tiered tres leche cake because it's too watery. Well, make it work because I already told her you could do it.
Oh no.
And so figure it out. So here's this tres leche in 90-degree weather. It was dripping off the table. Like milk was dripping off the table onto the sand. And by the time they cut it, it was falling apart so bad. They just touched the table and the whole thing fell over. Just slid right off the table. And thankfully, they were so nice, and they're like, everybody grab a fork and just dig in. Whatever was on the table, it was a free-for-all. And they were great about it, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a failure.
Mortified.
I failed. I suck at this. I can't believe it. And it's just so dumb, but these are the lessons learned, right? So after every wedding that I did, I wrote down pages and pages of lessons learned, so that I didn't make those mistakes again. And of course, I made those mistakes again. But the more you do it, the more you learn, and you get better and better and better and better. So it was...
Were there any other wedding planning services on the island at that time, or was that the first one? Was anybody else?
Well, no, Sabina was here.
Okay.
Sabina was here doing weddings, Sabina Tam. And she has Sun Dreamer's wedding. And at the time, she had some friends that had a catamaran. And so she was doing small weddings of, like, I don't know, up to 6 people kind of thing. Or they would take them on the catamaran and take them out and do a beautiful vow renewal and things like that. I wanted to focus on larger weddings, like big weddings.
Okay.
So I didn't feel like I was really in competition with her because she was doing smaller, and I had sat down and talked to her. She also owns a really beautiful apartment complex downtown. It's not a huge one, like 3 or 4 rooms. But she was busy doing other things. So she's like, nah, we're not in competition. You do whatever you want to do, and I'll do what I want to do. It's fine.
Well, I was just wondering if there was anybody to talk to about the business, to kind of help you or.
No, because from the beginning, I have a problem with people that are trained to do a job that don't know what the hell they're doing. Like you go to college and you learn business, but then you go to work and none of that helps you.
No.
None of it.
No.
So to me, it doesn't matter what education. I'm not going to go to school to be a wedding planner. I'm going to be a wedding planner based on what I would want if I was the client. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's always been based on what do I want as a client, and I'm going to do that. So, I built everything based on that premise. If I was a client, how would I want to be treated? How would I want them to do my wedding? Would I want to have full control, or would I want them to give me the advice? Because I've never done a wedding before. Like,
right.
As a client, you literally need to lean into the professional that's helping you.
Right.
And I want to be that person to give them the best advice and honest advice. Like there are some people like, I want all these thousands of dollars worth of fabric on the roof. And I'm like, no, you don't. Why? If you really want it, we can spend thousands of dollars on fabric. But why?
Why?
When the value, you could do so many other, with $2,000, you can have fire dancers, you could have real 4th of July fireworks show. Mm-hmm. You could have a tequila table. You could do a champagne toast and coconuts with rum in them. Like, I know this is all liquor based apparently, but these, you could do all these things just for the cost of some fabric on the roof.
Who cares about some flipping fabric on the roof, right? Like, yeah, guests aren't going to care about that.
No. And so I don't know. So for me, it was just, how would I want it if I was getting married? And that's, I didn't want to talk to other wedding planners.
Gotcha.
I wanted to build it myself.
Did you read any books or anything? I mean, were there resources available, or you really just were winging it?
I picked up a wedding book, like wedding planning books on Barnes and Noble. You could pick those up. After the first 2 years, I want to say, the florists that I had here on the island, they broke up and left. Oh. And I couldn't find anybody else. I tried some of the other people that said that they were florists, and I didn't like their work. So I ended up being the florist for 7 years. So I had to learn very quickly about how to make bouquets and centerpieces and all that stuff, and be the coordinator. And at that time, I didn't have any staff. I didn't have anybody to help me. So I did all the office work and accounting and floral stuff and planning and vendor management. I mean, it was nuts. And I was doing, I started this in 2002. And I would say by 2007, I was doing 48 weddings a year.
Oh, wow. By yourself?
And I was doing the flowers, which is nuts.
Well, and like, how do you keep them alive in the tropics?
Yeah. Really, you only got 24 hours. So I spent the morning of the wedding doing flowers.
Yeah.
And then, because you couldn't do them the day before. Oh, and I didn't have air conditioning.
Right.
Yeah.
Much less a cooler, right? That's what they do in the States. They got coolers that they keep these flowers.
Exactly. No. The morning, sometimes the morning of, but usually the night before, I'd go to Cancun, pick up all the flowers, bring them home, put them in water, cut the stems, put them in water, and garbage cans. Like, I had 15 garbage cans all over my living room, just full of packets of flowers and greenery and whatever. And then in the morning, I'd get to work, and I would have to clean it all up and do it all. And once in a while, I had a friend
help. This project too? Was he helping you build flowers? I bet.
My son?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no. He was playing video games in his room. No, he did not appreciate.
No. He didn't have a little slave labor.
No, he was good at making grilled cheese sandwiches. Like, he fed me.
Oh, that's good. Well, that
was his support.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that, and being a mom and doing all this stuff. Like, it was crazy. I did burn out for sure. But thankfully, I've had some really amazing luck with, once I did start to hire coordinators, somebody to help me kind of stuff. I had some really great luck at the time to bring in people that brought us up a notch too, that had different ideas, that saw things differently. So that as in the 18 years doing this, that has definitely, their input has definitely made changes here and there throughout the process, for sure.
So about for the first 5 years, you said you were just kind of one woman show, basically. And then, right. So, well, that's a lot of times that's how it's done, People
better
in their bedroom or their garage, and they just, work it. And so what shifted? Did you change, or you said you were burned out? Was it the burnout that kind of said, I got to do things a little bit different?
I would say there was a pivotal moment where I was doing everything myself for the most part, and I had hired a coordinator, Katie, and she was really good at the day of wedding coordinating.
Okay.
And I hired her, I trained her to do day of stuff, and then I left. And she identified that she needed help. So she met Alex, who is one of the other people that you have on your podcast.
Interviewed. Yes. Oh, I love her story.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
She met Alex because both of their husbands are musicians. And so all the, musician wives get together and so who are you? Where'd you come from? What's going on? So Katie had told me she met this girl, Alex, and she's going to be able to help us with the accounting and the back end stuff because that's what we really needed. Katie was great at the day of and the logistics, and we just need somebody for the office because I was a mess.
We'll be back in a moment.
Isla Mujeres is a Caribbean jewel off the coast of Cancun. Castilito del Caribe warmly invites you to enjoy our spectacular oceanfront villa located in the heart of El Centro and a short walk to Playa Norte, which is ranked one of the top 10 beaches in the world. With an ocean view of crystal clear turquoise waters overlooking both the Caribbean and Cancun city skyline, we offer a fabulous location for you to enjoy all the peace and tranquility you're looking for on vacation, while also taking in all the excitement the island has to offer, with activities either in walking distance or a golf cart day excursion away. Please visit CastilitoCaribe.com, www.CastilitoCaribe.com. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Integrity Vacation Property Management. Trust, truth, results. From buyer's representative services to rental market analysis, staging, marketing, and full-service property management, achieving your goals is our top priority. Visit our website at www.integrityvpm.com and get our free guide, Self-Manage or Hire, a property owner's checklist of issues to consider. Contact us for a free consultation to see if we can help you maximize the return on your investments. Integrity VPM, raising the bar in vacation property management. Welcome back to the Overseas Life Redesign podcast. Thank you so much for being here, and we invite you to subscribe if you like what you hear.
Here with Tiffany Lanier, how did that next evolution come about?
Alex came in and we went through a couple of years of like, my office was in my house, and at the time I think I had like 10 cats, and it didn't make for a really good working environment. Like a big dog and cats, it was chaos. And my son, and we went big time. We got an office and we were able to work there. And I think that's when everything kind of changed, because once I came out of my stupor of burnout, and I'm like, okay, now I'm recharged, I'm ready to go. I sat down and made a whole manual, policies and procedures manual for the company, like in a day.
Wow, good for you. So systems, baby. That's to the next level. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex brought so much to the table when it came down to getting things a little more business-like rather than just in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I made a policies and procedures kind of book, and we started being more like a company than, just kind of willy-nilly
fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. So now on the other side of it, we're doing probably 25 to 35 weddings a year. They're a lot more advanced now, even though like we're doing less weddings, but we're doing more per wedding because we're also now kind of liaisoning with the hotels, as well as doing other events, welcome dinners and golf cart scavenger hunts and snorkel cruises, and kind of the one-stop shop place.
Okay.
So we've added on all these other services. However, because of the systems, it isn't more work.
Right.
It streamlines so much that it's easy.
Nice.
Now.
That's
and
how
we're able to give the service that I really want to give. So I'm super proud of where we are right now. And I definitely, all of the people with Katie, and even some of the folks that came through and it left not in the greatest of ways, I'm so thankful that they were a part of the process, because I learned so much from everything that I've gone through in the last 18 years.
They all contributed.
Yeah. You learn from everything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Even my burnout.
Well, speaking of which, I remember, so we've been here for 3 years now. I just had a little memory come up on my Facebook page from when we sailed from Florida. And I remember, I think that was right around the time when we first got here, that you took off.
I did.
And tell me how that came about and what that
oh my gosh.
impact.
Well, so going back, I was here for 4 months. I went back to Minnesota. I worked as a mortgage originator, or I worked in a mortgage origination company in Minnesota, which is when everybody's buying and selling houses in the summer, not in the winter. So that worked out great for me to do summers in Minnesota for a few years. Then I decided that I need to be here more. So I sold the house and moved here full time. I can't remember what year that was, but a few years into it. And then I had not really traveled anywhere else. I just went back to Minnesota to visit family or New York to visit family, but I did not do any other traveling. In the meantime, we started the Sisters of Perpetual Disorder group.
Yes,
right?
we want to get to that too.
The Sisters of Perpetual Disorder meets 2 times a month, 1 time for coffee, 1 time for wine. There was in 2011, I believe, or early 2012, we had a sisters meeting, and Alex and I stayed a little bit longer at that meeting, as sometimes we do, to drink the rest of the wine that nobody else drank.
Right.
And at that after meeting, people were talking about, when I went to Rome, or when I went to Paris, or when I went to there and there, and I'm like, I have not been to anywhere. So I couldn't contribute to the conversation. So I'm just sitting there, well, that would have been nice to be in Rome, and that must have been a good time. But I couldn't, I had nothing to add. Yeah. So they're like, what the hell? What's wrong with you? Why haven't you traveled? I'm like, it's too expensive. And here's Alex, who does my accounting, saying, what? You spend $6,000 going to Minnesota and buying clothes you don't need. You could spend that $6,000 going to Europe. And what are you thinking? Yeah, you can.
Plus her minimalist, mentality for traveling on the sailboat. Right. Like, yeah, she's like, what do you mean? It doesn't have to be expensive.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Yeah.
You could do this on $5 a day. Exactly. Of course you could afford this. So I was like, okay, well, I guess Alex is giving me permission to go willy-nilly into Europe. So the summer of 2012, I did my first actual travel. Other than, before that, I was just coming here.
Sure.
So I went to Europe for 30 days. I bought a backpack. I made a plan. I got a Europass. I did pretty much but I did, I want to say it was 6 countries and 13 cities in 30 days. Yeah, I stayed, generally, that's how I travel. That's how I like to travel. Because my philosophy is go everywhere that you can go while mobility is good. Right. Because as I get older, I'm not going to have the mobility anymore. So I'm not going to be able to travel as fast and furious as I can now, because really I go into somewhere, I eat the food, I stay there, I walk around their park, I find out if I really like it or not, and keep moving. And I jot notes about where I want to come back to later on in life.
It's almost like a reconnaissance trip.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And every place I go, the question is, could I live here? Is this a place I could live? So I found a few of those throughout my travels. But yeah, 2012 was my big travel trip. And since then, I have traveled every year somewhere else, big travel trips, every single year. So that kind of started this. I don't know if Alex appreciates that now that I'm doing so much more. She opened up a can of worms on that one. But yeah, so now I've traveled Europe. We just went back to Europe last year as well and did Spain and Germany, which I will definitely go back to Germany. And I have a lot of where I want to go to next. I've done Asia, when Alex went over there to Malaysia for a couple of years.
Yep.
We traveled together for about a month, and then I stayed there and did some workout Muay Thai thing over there, which was super cool. I feel like if I'm not traveling, I'm not being inspired to be better. There's something about travel that fills my soul and teaches me new things. I always learn. I learn about my own patience, about my own limits, as well as outside things. Like I see different lighting and I'm like, ooh, I want that for my weddings. How do I get that?
Sure.
You know, I get inspired by architecture. I don't know. It fills my soul. I can't imagine. It's almost like I can't imagine my life without dogs or a dog or an animal in my life. I cannot imagine, like at no point in time will I be in a place that I do not have an animal, a fuzzy thing around me. It's part of who I am, and travel is the same thing. I don't think
isn't that funny, because a large portion of your life, right? You didn't even know that. It's funny to hear you say that too. Tom's youngest son, Dustin, worked at a restaurant in Orange County, California for a number of years. And the couple, she ran the front of the house, he ran the kitchen. And every year they would shut down for, I believe, a month or maybe 2. And they would go to Europe and he would cook. Oh, he would take cooking classes, and they would, it was vacation, but it was also inspiration for their work, and come back with all these new recipes and new dishes and everything. And I just thought that was so cool. I'm like, wow, that's a great way to keep things fresh and keep you interested and inspired in your business. To be able to get that and prevent burnout, right? You kind of get that. So that's awesome. I think that's a fabulous idea. If more people did that, I think they'd probably be happier in their businesses, right?
Yeah. Well, and thankfully I kind of fell into this wedding planning thing, and it just so happens that it's the perfect business to have for somebody that likes to travel, because I can work remotely the majority of the time. It's just during a wedding I have to be here to be the wedding coordinator. Sure. But the planning process, I can be anywhere and do that. I don't need to be static in one place. So this is the perfect business. Honestly, I couldn't have planned it any better, because I did not choose this. It chose me. I never thought I could be a wedding planner. I wanted to be a mechanic when I was a teenager.
Right. And your education was IT, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, other end of the spectrum, dealing with people and high emotions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The good news is how I was brought up really makes me good at this, because I put out fires all the time. And honestly, I'm a solution-based kind of person. If somebody comes to me with a problem, I want to solve it. Mm-hmm. So and my friends know this, if they just want to release their tension and just bitch about something and just have somebody listen, don't come to me, because I'm not that person. Right. I'm like, no, you need it. First of all, you need to do this. Let me make a list and put bullet points out, and actually let me call them for you.
Yeah, you put your fire hat on and away you go, right?
It's terrible. But they also know if they want something done, they call me.
They really want help with something, not just venting. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And I love that. Wedding planning is that. Like, it's all solution based. Like, what's a problem? All right, I'm going to fix it.
So it's you're well suited for that. That stress. And obviously you work well under pressure, because you can't do that business if you do that skill, right? Cool. And so now you said you've got the right formula for how many weddings a year that you do, and as I recall, I think you said you don't do weddings at certain times a year. You have time blocked where usually
it would be from July 15th to October 15th, because that gives us the chance to travel, but also weddings take a lot of time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
So there does need to be a moment, like we can have a wedding, 2 weddings a week during high season, and there's no stopping. It's not like you get Sundays off.
Right.
It's you're on. So you need to build in that mental space for yourself. And sometimes that could work because booking is different. Every year is very different. Sometimes our Februarys are super slow. We only have 1 wedding during that February, which is awesome because that gives us a break that we can recoup and get back into it. So with COVID now, we are opening up summers because of, couples that have postponed.
Sure.
And we need to open up a couple of dates for them and be accommodating. So for this particular summer, I'm not necessarily planning any big trips, not this year, just because we need to recover financially, as well as I've had all this time. We've had, 2 months of recovery time, AKA social isolation.
Yes.
Which I have been able to do a bunch of projects that I wanted to do and kind of get on my own feet. And, I don't necessarily need that travel this year, but I will do a couple of little things. I love Austin, Texas, and I have a bunch of friends there and I feel really supported there. So it's a $250, $300 round trip ticket. So
easy travel. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when I need mental inspiration and space and travel, I'll go to Austin, because honestly, my Lord, Austin has such a great art scene and food scene. And I definitely always get inspired just going there and hanging out.
Kind of a comfort place to go.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's so close by.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we certainly get a lot of visitors from Texas. Awesome. So, that's a great story, and I will definitely include your website or whatever links that you want me to include for your wedding planning business. Before we wrap up, I got to hear the story about the sisters and how that all came to be, and tell people what that is. I love it. I'm the consummate networker. I mean, when I would move to new towns, it was always the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary. I'd join these groups, and there's not many to join on Isla Mujeres, but I was fortunate to stumble across the sisters shortly after we arrived, and I just love that group. It's just such a wonderful group of women. So
yeah,
sure.
It's so years ago, I want to say 2009, but I could be wrong. My mom made a plaque, and I want to say it was 2009 was when she figured out when it started. Back in the day on Isla Mujeres, small island, right? So many people, because of the way that the island is, it's so safe for women solo travelers, right? So the same thing for me. I felt super comfortable to move here without any parachute, because it was, I never felt threatened or in danger or anything like that here. So we have so many single women here on the island who own businesses or just, live here, hang out in the winter time, especially Minnesotans.
Yes.
Come in the winter and then go back home and work in the summer just to come back and live in the winter. So back then there was a lot of younger folks that we knew each other and we kind of networked here and there, but we didn't have any way of an actual formal group of women. So there was a woman from England who had a boyfriend here, ended up pregnant, had twins, and boyfriend left. So she was a single mother of twins, and she had a really hard time because she was working full time until she got pregnant, and then now she has two babies to take care of, and she didn't have support here on the island for diapers, for clothes, for a job anymore. Like, it was really, really hard for her to be by herself without real family. Her mom was here, and that helped her through the majority, because they all four lived on their mom's pension. But it was so difficult for her, and she really had nowhere to turn to for assistance. And she couldn't afford a babysitter, and she couldn't afford diapers sometimes. But she didn't feel comfortable reaching out. because really Facebook wasn't around. We didn't really have a way to communicate with each other.
Right.
At the same time, one of our other friends got super sick with the flu, and she didn't tell anybody. And by the time we found out that she was really sick, it was a week later, and she couldn't get out of bed. And so it's like, oh, okay, we need to get her some chicken soup, some medicine. Like, we need to really get around these people and support them. But how can we ensure that other people will feel comfortable asking for help? So at the same time, I was reading Isabel Allende's second memoir. And in her book, she had a group of ladies called the Sisters of Perpetual Disorder. So I did not come up with the name.
Okay. So that's the origin of it.
Yes, Isabel Allende came up with the name in her second memoir. And so it just became that. I said, you know what? We need to get together and make a group of women here on the island to support each other, because there's too many of us that are alone without family, you know?
Sure.
So that's how it started. And we started meeting twice at the woman who had the twins and Bonnie Hamilton were the first to show up at the first wine meeting. And it was just the three of us.
Okay. So really, it started very small.
Very small. It was just the three of us. We had wine. We talked about whatever was going on. Bonnie was getting her yoga degree, and now she's like a huge yoga guru here on the island. And she's fantastic. And I just, little by little, more people would come to the meetings. But with Facebook, there's been a way that people don't necessarily have to come to the meetings, but they're supported. There's a place where we can ask each other questions, or especially with the new folks coming in and they really need more assistance, then we can be there for each other. There was a couple of guys that tried to do a guys group, because all the husbands were bored when their wives were at these meetings.
Sure.
It didn't last very long, because I don't think guys want social. They
I know like Reggie and Pat, they get together for dinner, you know, the snowbirds, the Minnesota snowbird men will have dinner together at the same time. So
and that's a great way. I mean, I want to say that it was going to try to be a poker club or something. I'm not really sure, but the women's group really has taken off in a beautiful way. And I'm so happy that, you know, people have really come to find it a place of refuge. Like, if you need help, if you need advice, if you need anything, just ask us. We're here.
And that's it. A huge resource. You know, like, if I don't know, that's one of the first places I'll go, post it in the sisters group. And, you know, you get this wonderful dialogue and resources. And I know we had a gal staying here at the house that couldn't sit on the beach chairs. Isla Rentals had dropped off the little beach chairs. Well, she couldn't get down that low, and they didn't have those foldable ones, the camping style. So I just posted on there, and, you know, I said, you know, happy to rent one. And, you know, one of the ladies, actually a couple different people said, I have one. It was just great, you know, and they were just so appreciative, you know, that we were able to get that like that. I mean, you know, I put it out there, and like an hour later we were picking it up.
Well, and mobility things like crutches, the walker, you know, if you never know when you need a pair of crutches, and when you need them, it's so hard to find down here.
Yeah, I know that. It's a really incredible resource, and they love it. I mean, I love it. I love going. And then, you know, even the Zooms have been fun. Of course, we miss the in-person, but technology is just made it so wonderful to kind of keep that connection going when we're all housebound.
Absolutely.
So
we'll get back together somewhat soon, whenever we feel, you know, comfortable, and we might even add a Zoom portion of it where people can still be a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's funny you say that. Yeah, I in this lockdown, I've reconnected with my friends from the yacht club I used to do Zumba with, and they shut down the yacht club. So the instructor went online, and just this week they're back at the yacht club. So she's taken her computer with her, because some of them are snowbirds, so they're not there anyways in the summertime. Right. And so there's half of us are online and half of them are in the room, and we're able to join in. So yeah, absolutely. I think that probably is a change that will happen in more than just these circumstances, now that people are, comfortable with the technology and realize, oh yeah, I don't have to be physically there to keep that connection. So do want to ask you if there's anything that I didn't ask you about that you would like to share, any kind of parting words. Or I guess one thing that I do have a question about is, do you feel like that sense of void that you had when you were working at the Mayo Clinic and you didn't know what was missing? Do you feel like you know what that is?
It's about being connected. I wasn't connected to my life there. And I am connected here, because here I'm doing what I'm passionate about. It makes me happy. My work fills my soul now, with work and traveling and the sisters meetings, the sense of community that is here, the amount of support that even, it's hard to explain, but when you feel at home, you feel supported. You feel like the space allows you to be who you are, I don't know why Minnesota just didn't give me that. And I tried, when I went back to college a few years ago, and I stayed in Minneapolis, and I thought, well, when you leave the country, you change your views. And at least for me, I'm not the same person I was when I left 18 years ago at all. And it's reverse culture shock when I go back home. And when I spent time in Minneapolis, I thought, well, Minneapolis is liberal enough that I think that I can really feel at home here. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't. It just didn't have that same feel in my soul, I guess, or in my body that it does here, or even Austin does. Austin gives me that. I'm not sure why, but maybe it's, again, that community feel or the inspiration that I feel there. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm surrounded by amazing people in both locations, here as well as in Austin. My group of people in Austin are just some of the most amazing people I've ever met. And I love being surrounded by that. And I get to have that in both places on a social level, but also on a spiritual level, watching sunset or, feeling the breeze in your face, and you're like, you feel close to God, I guess.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm definitely a changed person by making the move here. And again, I didn't feel like it was a choice. The choice was how I ended up staying here long, because I've never stayed anywhere longer than 3 years, my whole life,
Right. Yeah. You have a history of moving. Mm-hmm.
This is the longest I've ever lived anywhere, mainly because I had my head wrapped around, okay, I'm going to do this for a year. And if it doesn't work out this year, then I always had a place I could go to. I could always go back to Minnesota. I could always go to my dad's. I could always, find somebody's couch to sleep on if I failed, per se, or if it didn't work out. I never felt that I didn't have a parachute, per se. I knew that I could go somewhere, even if it's a place I didn't want to go, my brother's couch or something.
Right.
But I could. So therefore it gave me, I guess, a little bit more power or faith that I could do this. I can do anything for a year. I'm going to do this for a year. And then a year went by. And then I said, yeah, I can do this for another year. And then a year went by.
Right.
Another year went by, and now I don't think about that. Now this is my home, and I don't think of it in short-term little increments anymore. But I think that's how I got through the early parts, because it wasn't a lifetime commitment. It was for now.
Right.
You know, and so now it's here. And if something were to happen, I have no doubt in my mind that I could pick up my 4 cats and 2 dogs now and move to Croatia or move to Austin or move, like I could go anywhere else because it's not scary anymore.
Right.
You know,
that's really powerful. Because I think that's true. When people think about making a move like this, they're like, oh, this is like, it's forever. And it's only forever if you want it to be. It doesn't have to be. Yeah.
You can always recreate yourself anywhere you go. And it's not changing who you are. It's just starting again.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. You know, if you sell all of your beautiful, I still have a storage unit in Minnesota. And in that storage unit, I have some heirloom furniture. I have a box of my son's baby clothes and all of my photo albums from back in the day. And I will pay for that storage unit until I die. But because that's important to me, that's part of my budget each year is that storage, because having that little corner of the world have my history, it doesn't have to stay with me. It can just sit in storage and I'm okay with that.
Right.
So it's just going to sit there until who knows when. It makes me feel good that it's there. So you don't have to get rid of everything you loved in life.
Good point. I mean, we have the same. We shrunk it by half after, a year, but yeah, it's still there. And I told Tom actually this last couple of days, I said, we should go through and go through it again because, I know there's things in there that I'm ready to part with. When you go, you don't know. And so, initially it was like 10 by 10. Now it's 5 by 10. The next one, it'll probably go 5 by 5, and your life evolves, and things that were important to you once are no longer important to you. And yes, we've got the boxes of heirlooms and picture albums and all that stuff. And no, I don't want to part with it. And no, I don't think I want to bring it here either. So that's not a choice that you have to make.
No, people think that, well, if I'm going to move that far away, then I have to change everything. But you don't really. Like, it's okay.
No.
Do it the way that's comfortable to you.
Right. Absolutely. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And there's just so many pearls of wisdom in what you had to say today. And I think you will definitely inspire some other folks with your story. So
maybe in 10 years, we'll do it again and I'll have more stuff. Now I've started this art thing, and
I know. Yeah, we didn't even really get to that, but I will. I'll try to include that in the cover so we can showcase your COVID artist creations.
My COVID art collection, yes.
Beginning of the next chapter. But thank you. I want to say publicly too, thank you so much for what you do with the sisters, and you're really a pillar of the community with that group. And I know everybody really appreciates everything you do to try to keep the disordered orderly. So
there's always order in the disorder. It's perfectly fine. No, I love it. I really do. I love the group of women, and I love how supportive they all are. It's really great.
Pretty special group.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'll go ahead and end it here, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
This episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast was brought to you by our sponsors. Thanks for tuning in. Did you love this episode of the Overseas Life Redesign podcast? Then please subscribe to our show and leave us a nice review. It's very much appreciated. We invite you to visit www.overseasliferedesign.com. We'd also love for you to become part of our OLR community on Facebook. Thank you for listening.